Hey, welcome back to the Crabby. Today we're going to be looking at Myrmes, which you can probably guess the theme. We're going to be a bunch of ants in charge of our ant colony. We're going to be using our nurses, sort of like workers in our little colony area. We're going to have worker ants that are going to go onto the game board, trying to kill these preys, trying to lay down pheromone trails and so on, trying to score the most points possible because it is a Euro. Alright, so this is going to be the rules and setup video. If you want to see the review and playthrough, click on the link below. And like usual, before we start, please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. That would be fantastic. Alright, let's get started. Alright, setup time. So first start out by laying out your game board. We're going to deal with the prey tokens first. So these are black on the back side, so you're going to shuffle them all randomly and put one on each of the prey icons out on the game board over here. Okay. Next, we're going to deal with the objectives. There's 2 per color. There's color-coded stacks. Just take 2 randomly, put them on the game board. These are the objectives we're trying to fulfill throughout the game. Alright, next we're going to deal with our dice at the bottom here. So you're going to have 3 different dice. Basically every game year you're going to roll these, but they can be rolled at the beginning of the game. You roll them and just place them on their respective areas, like this. Alright, next we do have our year token. It is an ant. It looks similar to the prey tokens, but it is different. You're going to put this on the number 1. Alright, on the side of the board you have these special pheromones, larvae, food, and dirt and stone tokens out on the side. Next, let's deal with some player pieces. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is take one of each player markers, here the ants, and place it on the 10 spot. Everyone's going to start with 10 points. Alright, next we have our tunnels. What I like to do is place a tunnel closest to where the player is sitting. Alright, so let's say the red player is sitting on this side. There's a tunnel opening right here. If yellow is sitting on this side, and if blue is sitting on this side. Now you're going to notice I placed them in certain areas. That's because they're marked on the board where they're going to be placed. So in a 3-player game, there's 3 dots. They'll be placed here, here, and here. And in a 2-player game, they're going to be here and here. And in a 4-player game, it'll be here, 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 and here. Okay. Now, just for a 3-player game, what you're going to do is you're not playing with the areas outside of the black markings here. So you can actually remove these 6 prey tokens because they won't be used. And in a 2-player game, everything above this black line won't be used, but you are using this whole section over here, so you'll just remove the prey tokens above this line. Alright, but in this scenario I'm simulating a 3-player game. Alright, next let's go to our player board area. Pretty simple. Everyone's going to get a play mat, a colony marker that will start on the 0 space. Everyone's going to start with 2 workers. We have 8 in our pool altogether. We're going to start with 3 nurses, 1 larvae token, and there you go. Everything else could be organized. These are the special pheromones that only you have access to. Give out the first player marker, that's this token right over here, to a random player. And there you go. We're pretty much ready to go. Let's go to rules. Alright, welcome to the Myrmes rules breakdown. So this is a worker placement game, alright, but there's a couple of monkey wrenches here. So instead of putting out your workers out into the game board over here, you're going to be mostly playing them on your own player mat here. And the second wrench is that you have 2 different kind of workers, right? So you're going to have a phase where you're going to be putting out your nurse workers out onto your colony board, getting a bunch of bonuses. Alright, and then you're going to have another phase where you're going to actually be using your worker ants. And they're mostly going to be doing work out into the world over here, laying out pheromone trails, attacking prey, doing a bunch of things to try to score the most points possible. Alright, now the game's going to last 3 years. Alright, and we track the years with the seasons. Alright, so spring, summer, and fall are going to be regular player turns. We're going to have 6 phases in each of these every single time. And winter is basically just a reset, feed your worker style thing that's going on. Alright, so let's go into detail on all those 6 phases. Then I'll come back at the end to talk about scoring. There's some nifty things going on with the objectives up there. And there you go. You should get the gist of how to play after that. So let's get started. Alright, the first phase every single round is the event phase. So for that, you're going to look at the current season. You're going to look at the die value. And that's the spot we're going to place our event cube. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to look at your track down here. Alright, so the number 1 here means phase 1. Alright, you're going to have 1 cube that you're going to pretty much designate as your event cube for the rest of the game, and you're going to place it on the number that was rolled. Okay, now the bonuses below represent the bonus you'll get for the rest of that round, depending on where the event cube is. Alright, now during this phase you can actually shift this over by spending larvae tokens. Alright, so let's say you really wanted this bonus over here, you can shift this over and spend a larvae token right over there to represent the shift. All right, you can do this as many times as you want. So let's say you add 5 larvae tokens, you can shift this red thing 5 times to the left if you wanted to. All right, let's go through some of these bonuses quick. The 0 space here is for the rest of the round. You can simulate that your colony was 1 step further down. So right now we start our colony at 0, but it would simulate that I was on at least space 1. This one is every time I gain a point, I'll get +1 points. This is the larvae action. So when you're getting larvae for this round, you get an extra 2. This is +3 production. So when you're getting food during phase 4, you'll get an extra 3 cubes wherever you want. This is +3 movement. So your workers can move an extra 3 movement on the game board. This is soldier. If you generate at least a soldier, you'll generate an extra 1. This is the +1 pheromone. So when you're putting out your pheromone markers over here, normally you're limited to your colony size, but you can go up 1 extra space higher. And finally right here is the +1 worker. So if you're generating a worker, you can generate an extra worker. All right, so those are all the bonuses down there. So once everyone's decided which bonus they want, they leave their marker there. They'll discard their larvae tokens, and that's the end of phase 1. Alright, phase 2 is called the birth phase, but I like to call it the nurse phase because you're going to be assigning your nurses here. You'll see the number 2 out onto your own game mat. Now, before we start, this phase can be done by all players at the exact same time. There's nothing going on your board that will affect other players. So to save or speed up the game, you can all do it at the same time. Okay. What you're going to be doing is assigning your nurses to the octagonal spots on your game mat over here. And there's 4 different spots that you can place your nurses, okay? So there's the create larvae, create soldiers, create workers, and the atelier section over here that I'm going to talk about last. That's sending your nurses up there. Alright, just a couple of rules when you're placing your nurses here. They always have to start at the bottom and work their way up. And the bonus is the groups of nurses here. So I'll talk about this one first. So by having 2 nurses, you're going to create 1 worker. You're going to take your worker from your pool and add it to the section. If you put in all 4, you'll create 2 workers and add it to this pool. Same concept over here for soldiers. By having 2, you'll create 1 soldier. Soldiers and workers are the same tokens or ants here. You have a max capacity of 8 for both combined. So if you already have 8 out on your board, you can't create more. All right, it's a hard cap. Now, if you had all 3, you'll create 2 soldiers. You'll take 2 and put them in the slot over here. Larvae tokens here works very similarly. If you put only 1, you'll create 1. If you put in 2, you'll create 3. You're going to take 3 from the general supply and add it to your supply over here. And if you put in all 3, you're actually going to create 5. You're going to take 5 cubes from here and add it to your personal supply over here. All right, so that's 5 combined. You don't get 5 plus 3. It's 5 in total. All right, the last spot that you can assign your nurses are down here to the atelier. Their spot on this board represents the same spot up there. I'm going to talk about all these during phase 5, but essentially you can't have more than 1 nurse per area assigned. So for example, you can only raise your colony once per round because it'll appear once there, and you can only have a spot for 1 nurse over here. Now when everyone's done this phase, you're pretty much done. You work your way to the next one. Alright, the third phase of the game is the worker phase. So for that, you're going to look at your player board here. You have a number 3, and you're going to be dealing with these workers. So unlike phase 2, you're going to be doing phase 3 in player turn order. So each player is going to play 1 of their workers at a time. Alright, so now there's 2 different things your workers can do. They can either work in your colony or go out into the open world. So let's talk about the colony first. The first thing you can do with a worker is assign it to a spot on your colony here. You can only place it where up to your colony level. So if I'm at level 0, I can only assign a worker here. Or if I'm at level 1, I can assign it either here or here. Alright, now each space has a max capacity of 1, but you can place it on every spot that level that you're at or before. Alright, so on my next move I could have actually assigned him there. Okay. Now the other thing you can do with a worker is send him out to the game board. Alright, so a couple of things here. Alright, so the first rule you need to know about worker ants, when entering the game board, they must always start from one of your tunnels. Okay, so at the start of the game you only have 1. but there's ways of building extra ones. You pick which one he wants to exit from and place him in there. Okay, next is the movement rules. So a worker always moves 3 spaces. So that's the marker over here, the 3 arrows. Okay, there's ways of getting bonuses, but by default it's always 3. All the hexes on the game board represent 1 movement point. So let's say you want to move here. It'll cost 1, 2, 3 to get over here. Now, some exceptions to the rule. You can never move into water ever. Moving through your network of pheromones is free. So it'll cost you 1 movement to jump onto the tile. And then you can zip line through, and then 1 movement to jump off. So for example, you go 1, 2, 3 to reach this spot over here. Some other rules, opponent's pheromones, you can jump onto them, but it'll cost you a soldier to go onto a tile. So you must have the soldier available to discard, or you can't do that. And lastly, the prey tokens, they don't end your movement, but you must have these soldiers available to kill the prey to move onto that tile. Alright, so for example, if I want to reach this tile and I have to go through here, I would have to fight the prey before moving to this spot. Let's talk about fighting prey right away. This is sort of a intermediate action. I don't know how else to explain it, but you're not wasting your whole turn fighting a prey. It's something you do while moving. Okay, so let's say I was here, or let's say I was here and I moved 6. I would go 1, 2, 3. I would fight the prey, and then I would keep moving after. So how do you fight prey? Pretty simple. You're gonna look at the little chart over here, and you have to discard soldiers according to the type of prey that it was. So if it was a ladybug or a termite, you need to discard 1 soldier, and if it was a spider, you have to discard 2 soldiers. So what you're gonna do, just go to your pool of soldiers, discard for how many you need. So I'll discard 1 because it's a ladybug. What you're gonna do is keep the ladybug token as a sort of prize / reward. You might need them for one of the objectives. You're going to also gain the benefit for attacking that prey. For a ladybug, you get 2 food. You'll keep the 2 food in your personal supply. And like I already mentioned, you're going to keep this into your area just in case you need it for an objective. Alright, that's how you deal with prey. And then you just keep moving. There's one extra action you can do while moving. I'll talk about it now. Is you can actually remove pheromone trails that are already on the board. Okay, so if you're on top of a pheromone trail and you want to remove it, it's going to cost you 1 dirt. Alright, so I already talked about the movement action here. I'm going to talk about this one. So this is removing a pheromone trail, costs you 1 dirt. So let's say you had a dirt in your supply over here, you return it back into the general supply, and you can remove the pheromone trail. The only restriction is that the trail needs to be empty. So the tile needs to be empty. So if there are cubes on the tile, you wouldn't be able to move it. But in this example here, let's say there's no tokens on this tile. If I was on it, I can turn in a dirt and then remove this from the game. So that's very important. Every time somebody removes a pheromone trail, it gets removed from the game. Your reward for removing a tile from the game is you always score the points indicated on the tile. This goes for your tiles and your opponent's tile. So if you remove one of your opponent's tiles, you score the points on it as well. And that's what you're doing. You're going to keep moving and then end your movement. Whenever you end your movement with a worker ant, he's going to lay down a pheromone trail. Okay, so laying down pheromones. So when your worker ant stops, he's going to pretty much die and you're going to create a pheromone trail. All right, so first you're going to pretty much discard him back to your pool. All right, and then you're going to lay down a pheromone trail where he died. Okay, the size of pheromone trail that you're able to build is indicated by the size of your colony, right? So you can start off with only a 2 hex size, and then there's a 3, and then a 4, and then a 5. So at the start of the game, you can only place these. Okay, and placement rule is one of the hexes that you're covering up must be where the ant died, obviously. So you're able to play it like this, or like this, or like this, or even like this. Okay, so let's say it's like this. Okay, some placement rules: you can never ever cover up another tile. So let's say the blue tile was like this, you wouldn't be able to do it like this, but you could do it like this. You can't cover up a prey token, you can't cover up a tunnel, and you can never go over water. Also, you can't go outside the board. Alright, so if you're playing less than 4 players, remember there are some restrictive zones. And you can't go off the board over here. After you place the tile, you're always going to place cubes on the trail equal to the areas that you're covering up. All right, so there's three kinds of areas on the board. There's the green, which is food, brown is dirt, and gray is sort of stone slash rock. Okay, so by placing it here, let's say I would take a food and a rock cube and place it on top of the trail. Sort of like that. Okay, and that's what you're pretty much going to do at the end of every single worker's movement. All right, your other option, instead of placing one of your regular trails, also I did forget to mention that you will score points equal to the trail value. So the bigger the trail, the more points you'll get. So if you put out this big one here, you'll score 6 points. You'll go up 6 points on the track, and then you'll put the trail down. Okay. Your other option besides your own pheromone trails is to place a special tile. Okay. For these ones, you can only do them if your colony level is 1. You'll see the 2 special tiles here. Or level 3, the other special tile is here. Okay. Special tiles are not free like pheromones. Pheromones are always free to place. But these special tiles will cost you, and the cost is indicated on the left here. So this big one here costs 1 of each resource. This one here costs a white cube, and this one here costs a food to place. Alright, but the placement rules are exactly like pheromones. So you're going to pay the resource, you're going to grab the tile, and then you're going to put it on the game board. So let's say you're playing this one, and my ant had died over here. You're going to follow the same placement rules. One of the areas that it's covering must be where the ant finished its movement. Okay, for these special tiles, they're essentially going to give you bonuses later on in the game, but you're going to take one of these cubes and place it on top to signify that that one's yours. Alright, because these are sort of neutral colored, these cubes will indicate that they're yours. Alright, so just as a recap of what your workers are doing, alright, remember, so you're either using a worker in your colony to get the resources here, or you're sending him out into the world. He's going to exit a tunnel, he's going to move 3, and then he's going to lay down a pheromone or special tile when he's done his movement. And there's two actions you can do during your movement: removing pheromones and attacking prey. Alright, let's go to the next phase. The last thing to mention about these workers is that players might have a different supply of them. So you're playing them one at a time, so it is possible that other players have to pass, and then you'll just keep looping around to the players that still have workers to play. Alright, finally we get to phase 4, which is the harvest phase. Again, this is a phase that all the players can do at the exact same time. And for this one, what you're going to do is you're going to look at all the pheromone trails on the game board, and for each non-empty trail, the owner must take one of the tile. This is a mandatory action. You must take a tile. So for example, red here would have to take one of these tiles. Let's say he takes brown, and then one of these. Let's say he took the stone. And all the cubes that you take go into your supply over here. So remember, this is phase 4. Now let's talk about these special tiles. These ones generate resources during this phase. Okay, so if you built one of these brownish ones, you're going to get either dirt or stone from the general supply and add it to your storage area. If you built one of these green ones, you're going to get a food added to your storage area. And if you built one of these, all you're going to do is gain 2 points on the track, and that's it. Okay, phase 5 is, again, we got to return back to player order. All right, and this is the Atelier phase, where we're going to deal with the section up here. So remember, phase 5 was the nurses that you placed here are now going to be transported on the game board here and perform their action. So in turn order, you're going to perform exactly one action of one of your nurses, and then you go around the table. Just like the worker phase, it's possible that more players have more nurses up here than other players. In that case, you just skip their turn when they run out of nurses. Alright, so let's talk about all these actions. Pretty simple. If you have a worker here, it's to create a new tunnel. What you're going to do is you're going to take one of your tunnel tokens and place it next to something of your color. Alright, so you can place it here, here, or here, so on and so on. And you're going to get a dirt from the general supply to add to your storage area. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about increasing your colony. So over here is moving this marker down exactly one space. the cost of doing so is indicated above it. So for here it's cost 2 dirt. If you were here and you wanted to go here, it's 2 dirt and 1 stone. And if you were going from here to here, it would be 3 stone. Alright, each nurse there goes 1 step. Next is make another nurse. Alright, for this one, costs 2 food and 2 larvae. Alright, you're gonna discard the food and the larvae, and you're gonna basically take a extra nurse token that you have up here and add it to your pool right over here. And lastly is the objectives. Okay, so this one's kind of tricky. What you're going to do is, if you satisfy one of the objectives, some of these are turning in resources, other ones are having something on the game board. What you're going to do is you're going to take that nurse token and you're going to assign it to that objective. Okay, the points you're going to score is indicated in this section over here. So it's 6 for these ones, 9 for these ones, and 12 for these ones. Now, very important rule, you must always have a level 1 completed before jumping onto a level 2, and same thing for level 3, you need a level 2 to jump onto a level 3. So you can't satisfy a level 3 before doing the other 2. You can jump up and down, doesn't really matter, but you must do one before it. So you can do this one and then this one and then that one, for example. Okay. Alright, so when completing an objective, if you're doing it after somebody else had already completed that objective, if it was a later turn, alright, so if it all happens during the same turn, so let's say multiple people came here and you both got this one, then nothing special would happen, you'd both get your 6 points. But if I did it in one turn and blue would do it in the following turn, okay, red would score extra points. You're going to look at this chart over here, and depending on the number of players, you're going to score extra points. So here, if you're playing 3 players, I would score 4 points for every other player that would gain that objective after I had already gained it. Alright, so just look at the chart. For 4 players it's 3, for 3 it's 4, and for 2 it's 5 extra points. Alright, so keep that in mind. Going first for the objectives could be lucrative. Another thing you really have to keep note of is the nurse you're sending to the objective space stays on the board for the rest of the game. So you're losing nurses every time you're completing an objective. So that's another thing you need to keep into account. And finally we get to phase 6, which is sort of a reset phase. So this will go fast. So you're going to reset your board basically. So return any workers that were sent in the colony here. So these are going to get returned here. Remember, the workers that were sent out to the main board get discarded, so they never get returned. Next, your nurses get returned, so return all your used nurses. You can also return the ones that were used in the Atelier. Remember, not the objective ones, because those ones are now locked in place for the rest of the game. Next, you can discard any larva tokens that you've previously used on the track over here. They all go to the discard pile. Alright, and next we're going to have to look for our max capacity for the storage. Alright, so the summary is here. So if you're on colony level 0 or 1, your max capacity is 4. And if you're on 2 or 3, as you can see here, your max capacity is 6. So all cubes you have above that max capacity, you need to discard. Okay, you can't keep more than you're allowed to keep. Alright, lastly, you're going to pass the first player marker to the person on your left. Oh, and before I forget, you can also discard the die of the season that you were in. If you were discarding the fall, then the next thing you're going to do is do the winter phase. Alright, winter is all about paying for food, so all the players can do this at the exact same time. So during year 1 we have to pay 4, year 2 we have to pay 5, and year 3 we have to pay 6. So what you're going to do is, the summary is displayed down here on your player board. You're going to take the food from your storage area and discard it, but before you do so, each soldier you currently have in your little supply here is going to count as a food. Alright, so if you have to pay 4 and you have 2 soldiers, you only have to discard 2 food from your stock area. For each food you cannot pay, you're going to end up losing 3 points. Alright, when everyone's done that, well, you can just reset to the next year. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to move the marker down. You're going to take all the dice, re-roll them, reassign them to their areas over here, and go on to the next year. Okay, if you scored the 3rd year, all right, you're not going to reset anything. You're just going to go to final scoring. Okay, absolutely nothing is scored at the end of the game. So as soon as you pay for your food, whoever has the most points is gonna win the game. All right, those are the rules for Myrmes. Let me know if I made any mistakes. Click on the link below for the playthrough and my thoughts / review. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one. Later.